Welcome to the Anderson Township Zoning Commission meeting for Monday, May 20th. We have 3 items on the agenda. First item, approval of the agenda. Have a motion?
I make that motion.
Okay, Harry, second.
I second that motion.
Thank you, Christine. We're doing roll call, just... All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item is approval of minutes from April 22nd, 2013. Looks like Jonathan, you, I, and Christine were here. We got these in advance. Any corrections, alterations? If not, I'll have a motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Thank you, Jonathan. Second?
I second that
Second, Christine. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
You got an abstention? Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Third item on the agenda is case 1-1987, a major modification filed by Timothy Dwyer, Leesman Engineering and Associates Incorporated, on behalf of Beachmont Enterprises VL, property owner. The property is located at 8600 Beachmont Avenue, Zone EE, planned retail. Staff report?
The request is to approve a major modification to the final development plan for Case 1-1987 to allow a change of use from a restaurant to an automobile service and to increase the impervious surface ratio from 73% to 83%. This is an aerial photo of the site. In front of you is Beachmont Avenue, where the star is. The former restaurant was Dos Amigos. There is a bank to the east, and then to the west is Chick-fil-A. The property behind is a shopping center with Harbor Freight Tools, Big Lots, Dollar Tree, various retail staples, Target in the vicinity. To the south is Beachmont Toyota, a bank, and office buildings and general retail. This is the property in question, and the site outlined was the parcel in question, and we'll go through the history. It is part of a planned district, EE, again, which was Case 1-1987. Again, the proposed development is an approximately 7,800 square foot tire discounters with 41 parking spaces, landscaping, lighting, etc., and a proposed freestanding sign. The existing restaurant building would be demolished, and the site would be reconstructed with this. This is the proposed site plan. There currently is full access on Beachmont Avenue. This is Beachmont Avenue here. That access would be modified to right in, right out. There is an existing full access to the shopping center directly to the west of the property. And then there's also an exit only from the bank to the property to the east. The main entrance, again, is a right in, right out off of Beachmont and then off of the access drive through the parking lot. The front entrance is to the east. It is a double-loaded facility. This is the proposed landscaping plan. These are the proposed elevation drawings. This is a little deceiving because it's taken at an angle, but this would be the east elevation. This would be the Beachmont Avenue or the south elevation. And we have elevation drawings also from the signage, and they don't necessarily correspond with this elevation. That's been raised in our staff report, but we'll go through them anyway. This would be the Beachmont Avenue elevation, the south. This would be the east. And then this is the proposed freestanding sign, approximately 19 feet 6 inches tall, 104 square feet. Proposed at the entrance, at the right in, right out entrance, just on the slide there. These are the site photos of the existing restaurant that has closed. This is looking generally north toward Aldi, and this would be the right in, right off, and parking to the east, and then the east side of the building. Again, the building would be demolished. Looking back at the existing shopping center to the north, this is an existing freestanding sign for the shopping center at that full access to the shopping center that was referenced. So actually, I'm sorry, I'm going in the wrong direction. Before we get into zoning resolution compliance, just a little bit of history on this site. The case was originally approved in 1987 and was EE planned retail for a shopping center. There have been multiple changes in the past years, and that is in your staff summary. Most recent was in January of this year, in 2013. The applicant, the owner of the property, which was Libby, made a request for a major modification to do a land division for that 2-acre parcel that you saw in the, on the slide, and that was approved. There was also a variance request for the rear parcel because it does not have frontage on Beachmont Avenue, and the variance was granted for a landlocked parcel, or for the creation of a landlocked parcel. There were 2 conditions placed on that approval. One was that all the previous conditions of Case 187 and subsequent modifications and the underlying requirements of the zoning resolution still apply. And then the second was that the amended and restated declaration of easements and covenants and reciprocal easement agreement be modified to incorporate the newly created parcel and shall be recorded. And so that was attached and included in your packet, which is important because it states that this new lot and the new owner should have cross-access rights and easements, not only for access but also for parking for the entire shopping center as a whole. They all share. The other notable thing of this and the history was right after the shopping center was approved in 1987, or shortly after, there was a request for a clock tower as well as a freestanding sign. The zoning commission at that time denied the request. That denial was appealed to the Court of Common Pleas, and the zoning commission's decision was overturned. And the clock tower was permitted to be built, however, it never was constructed, and the freestanding sign that you saw in that one, if it'll go back, this freestanding sign here was approved through that appeal for the entire shopping center, as well as there are other non-conforming signs on the property, and those were also approved at the time. However, in the resolution case 187, it says once those leases expire, those signs must come down, and that has been the case. The most recent sign that came down was Lee's Famous Recipe. When Lee's was torn down, their sign also came down. The ones that still remain are Staples and West Banco. But newer developments that have come through, such as the Toma and Sutton and Chick-fil-A, do not have freestanding signs because of the original resolution of 187. It basically stated that the shopping center shall have one main identification sign, which is the one here in the slide. So with that, we'll go through zoning resolution compliance. Everything is compliant except for the 3 following. One is that section 144C requires 2-way maneuvering aisles to be a minimum of 24 feet wide. There is a section, I'm sorry if I'm going to flip back and forth, but
Please do. I want to see that.
you want to see that? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. This area here by the dumpster narrows to 22 feet, 22, 23 feet. So this is an area where the drive aisle does not meet the minimum 24 feet wide. So staff recommends that a variance not be granted for that and that the site plan be modified to allow for the 24-foot wide minimum. The second area was that the parking range, the zoning resolution allows for an optimum range of 15 to 19 parking spaces, and the applicant is proposing 41 parking spaces. The zoning is worded where that above the optimum is permitted if you meet 2 other criteria. One is doubling the setback that is normal for your parking lot. So instead of having a 10-foot landscaping strip along Beachmont Avenue, they would be required to have a 20-foot landscaping strip, and 2 times the minimum, or I'm sorry, an additional tree for every 40 feet and an additional shrub for 5 feet. And neither of those are provided. The second item I wanted to bring up was that as we talked about, a cross-access easement and shared parking agreement is in place. So we really didn't receive a letter stating why the extra parking is needed. Staff feels that either the extra setback and the extra landscaping should be provided, or the existing parking for the shopping center should be utilized. Not necessarily for customers, they could have the, but for employees or possibly cars that are being left overnight for service and that sort of thing. Because the overall parking for the shopping center is already over the optimum because it was approved in 1987 when we didn't have the optimum range. We just had a minimum range. And then finally, for the freestanding sign, staff is recommending that a variance not be granted for the freestanding sign either. Its maximum height for freestanding signage in retail is 15 feet, and maximum square footage is based off of your frontage, but it maxes out at 100. This sign that is proposed is 19 feet tall and 104 square feet. In addition, it's located within approximately 165 feet to an existing sign. So all three of those criteria, staff feels do not warrant a variance. As far as the approving resolution from 1987, again, all of the conditions are met with the exception of the freestanding sign. The applicable plans, Beachmont Corridor Plan is being achieved with the right-in, right-out. Converting the full access to right-in, right-out is compliant with the corridor plan as well as ODOT's proposed safety study, which will be implemented next year. The Anderson Trails Plan, a sidewalk is being provided as well as a connection to the front door. The Anderson Plan is consistent with the goals and objectives as outlined in your staff report for economic development and land use and development. The Vision Plan. Let's look at the elevation drawings for the Vision Plan. The Vision Plan encourages new construction to have a front door appearance on Beachmont Avenue. And let me back up. This falls within the Neighborhood 6 of the Vision Plan, which is automobile-oriented and big box-oriented. So as far as having parking on the sides and the setback of the building is in line with existing development in that shopping center. It matches up with the setback of Chick-fil-A, Toma, and Sutton, so the setback is not, it is consistent with the area. The appearance of the front of the building, though, again, is deceiving because we have an elevation drawing shot at an angle, but and I'll let the applicant speak to this. It's my understanding that, sorry you can't see me pointing to my computer, that these three windows would be in this general vicinity, but again, this is not necessarily a front appearance on Beachmont Avenue as this would be. So staff is recommending that the Beachmont Avenue frontage be modified to look like the east side so that they almost have a double frontage, or at least the appearance of a storefront on Beachmont Avenue. So with that, the recommendation is approval of the modification as outlined in the staff report with recommended conditions of that the previous conditions from 187 and other subsequents, including the major modification in January, still apply to the site. The amended and restated declaration of easements and covenants and reciprocal easement agreement be recorded and modified with the incorporation of this development. That the south elevation, again the Beachmont Avenue frontage of the building, be modified to have a storefront appearance, such as the east elevation, consistent with Beachmont Vision Plan. That the site plan be modified to be in compliance with the Anderson Township zoning resolution as noted above. And that is referring to the 24-foot drive aisles and also either an adjustment to the parking numbers or additional setback and landscaping, one or the other. And that can be discussed tonight. And then there is, in addition, a variance is being requested for the freestanding sign, and staff is of the opinion that the variance should not be granted as we feel that it is substantial. It conflicts with the Court of Common Pleas decision on freestanding signage for the premise, as well as the approving resolution number 772 for case 187. Staff is of the opinion that the character of the neighborhood would be altered and adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. Recent developments, newer developments do not have freestanding signage, and the shopping center is moving in a direction of having that one shopping center identification sign. The property owner is purchasing the property with knowledge of the zoning restrictions, and the spirit and intent behind the requirement would not be met. Again, basically, zoning resolution is moved to in a direction where shopping center should be identified, and if they do not have one, identification sign for the shopping center, lower monument style signage, or at least 15 feet tall max. And this one's too close to an existing freestanding sign, too tall and too large. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and start down on the end. Jay, questions for the staff?
The only question I'd have is on the, where you want the aesthetics on the frontage with the Beachmont, be consistent with the Beachmont corridor. Is that something that's binding, or is that just a request?
The Beachmont Vision Plan is a recommending document. So it is not binding, it is a request.
There's no underlying zoning.
There's no underlying zoning, however, this is a planned district, so because it's a planned district, we do look at all of our adopted plans as a guideline to make recommendations, and that's what we're recommending.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Christine?
Can additional signs be put into that main shopping center sign?
A face change, the sign itself is already larger than what would be permitted, so it could work within the existing square footage. The other more complicated thing we would encourage is for the shopping center just to redo the entire, it's dated, it's, you know, it went up in 1987, the entire shopping center signage is dated. Staples sign, West Banco, they're all not consistent with newer signage on Beachmont Avenue. But if we're working with the existing signage, it would have to be incorporated into the existing square footage.
Okay.
Jonathan?
Was there any reason given for the stop sign at the entry drive off of Beachmont Avenue? Or is that, should I say that for the applicant?
You can say that for the applicant.
That's really the only question I have at this time for you. Ken.
Okay.
Harry, anything from you at this time?
Not unless we have sidewalks coming up yet.
Okay.
Is that going to be taken care of later?
There's a sidewalk along Beachmont, I'm sorry, there's a sidewalk along Beachmont that connects to properties on both sides. There's already a sidewalk on Chick-fil-A, and there's already a sidewalk in front of West Banco, and this sign connects into those two
Okay,
sidewalks.
but well, I say sidewalk, but on the, right in, right out, we're going to have the, is it going to be the pavers, or is it going to be painted brick?
That I don't know, that would be a good question for the applicant.
Okay,
Yeah, because let's get that clear now. Great question, Harry, because we don't want to run into what we did at the corner of Nagel and Beachmont.
right, we don't need that.
I'm not sure that that's called out.
Okay.
And also the idea whether it's going to be the wheelchair.
Okay.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it? All right. Paul, I have no questions at this time. We'll go ahead and invite the applicant to come up, so please state your name for the record and present.
How do they say that? Pick your poison here.
It's just concrete.
Good evening. Tim Dwyer with Leisman Engineering.
Robert Ostraker with Tire Discounters.
I'd like to start off with the drive aisle down near the dumpster pad. We have been talking with the architect, and right now it is 20 feet wide, and the architect feels like he can take it down to 18 feet wide. So we don't have to take any additional landscaping away. We'll take away from the dumpster pad to make the drive aisle work.
Okay.
As far as the amount of parking is, we've been told from Libby that there is no cross-access easement, there's no reciprocal parking easements that are being granted. Tire Discounters does do the amount of volume to where they would need that many parking spaces per day. 41 is our typical number that we try to go for. With the employees and the customers per day, that's about what we use. For security purposes, the whole parking lot can always be seen from inside the building, whether it's one of the employees or one of the managers, can always see the cars that are being worked on. The dumpsters that are up, as you can see on the top, those will not be ours anymore. Those will go back to Libby or whoever takes over the property. That intersection is extremely busy, and Tire Discounters does not need their customers walking across that access drive. And, as customer services, you kind of want to tell the person that their car is right out the front door, not around the back of the building and to the back of the parking lot across the driveway to get their car when the car's been finished. In terms of the landscaping, we've tried to soften up the parking field with a couple landscape islands and some nice trees and shrubs in between. We've worked with ODOT to achieve the right-in, right-out and the concrete sidewalk up front. There's a large amount of green space between the sidewalk and the parking for landscaping and grass. And overall, we feel there's a lot of landscaping and grass being provided to kind of dampen the parking field and hide the headlights of the cars. Other than that, I think that we're free to answer any questions. One more thing. The building, Tire Discounters has gone a long length of trying to come up with one building to brand themselves. And this is the prototype A building, which is also on the 5 Mile property that's being built. And they're trying to stick to one building and one building alone. When Tire Discounters very first looked at this property, I actually had the building turned to have that actually facing the street. It didn't work. The site was too small. In the REA agreements, there was too much road frontage, and Libby would not approve that because they thought it would block the frontage of the buildings behind us. So that has never even been an option for us to actually put the storefront along the front of Beachmont, and there's really nothing that we could do about that from the very beginning. So I think I've covered everything that you guys had originally requested. If you guys have any additional questions.
Okay, we'll go ahead and go down the line again. Jay, any questions for the applicant about those comments?
Just on the start, you talked about the width, so you will make the 24-foot mark now?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to clarify.
Okay. Christine?
You're talking about the store frontage. I mean, the way the current plans are drawn up, there's not a way to just extend out your glass area and add an additional door.
Well, first of all, I want to clarify and confirm what Paul said. Those 3 windows will be on the prototype that's built here.
Right.
And then in terms of just expanding that glass storefront along the edge, there's a structural wall right at that ephes band that separates on the interior, that separates the showroom area from the guest waiting area. And so it would be, we close that up, or we put those round windows in there because there's actually a children's play area where those round windows are, and it would be a fundamental design change to the building.
Jonathan?
Yeah, a couple questions for you. The site plan's called the dumpster enclosure, a block wall and concrete. Is it going to be consistent with the other exterior materials of the building?
Yes, sir. It's the same material.
So it'll be brick?
Brick, yeah, brick, cast brick. Yeah.
Okay. The stop sign at the entry drive off of Beachmont, I kind of assume it's to slow people down, but is that going to be an issue of multiple people coming in at one time and backing up onto Beachmont Avenue?
Help me out with the stop sign. I'm not.
There's a stop sign entry right in, right out, right at the parking field, start of the parking field on the east property line.
Yeah, that's to keep people from coming in.
So it looks like there's only stacking for one, potentially 2 cars back to Beachmont Avenue.
Correct.
You don't see that being a traffic flow issue coming from Beachmont Avenue?
The problem is right now is as the restaurant sits, it's an empty parking lot, and even while as they're surveying it, people just fly through that parking lot. And that is the main entrance to the store. There's going to be people backing in and out of the bays, and that was one of the main ways that we could think of to slow these people down It seems like people use our entrance more than they use the actual entrance to the development for some reason. Hopefully the right-in, right-out deters them from using that a little bit. But as a safety matter, we needed something there to at least try to slow these people down. Myself, I almost got hit a few times just surveying the property.
One last question. There was a fence attachment. Where's the fence proposed? I did not see that on the site
The fence
plan.
is around the, if you go back to the site plan, Paul, the fence is around the detention pond in the back and the rear of the building.
Okay.
With more discussion with Robert Stryker and other Tire Discounter staff members, they feel that that is a safety issue, having a big hole in the back of their building. We've actually started to begin to elect doing an underground detention system and just putting that as a grass, as kind of a grass island, or even a landscape island back there, and moving the detention pond underground out in the parking lot. When we looked into it further, there's so many cars and trucks, we'd have to do a higher curb, we'd have to do guardrails, we'd have to do fencing. And I just don't think they wanted to take that risk with that much going on back there, that they're going to, it's almost double the expense, but I think they're going to elect to go underground detention and remove that bowl. It'll just be a grass island now. That was where the fencing was on top of that, on top of that fence,
And then
on top of the wall.
photometric plan on the east property line, about 3/4 of the way back, shows a .81 photometric outside the property line, but I believe that's over the zoning, allowable. Do the light fixtures have cutoff or house side shields on the backside of those?
Yes, they're cut off and they're shielded. The .81 of the property line is there, but there's also another pole for the bank right behind it. So both of those lights will be on at the same time at night. So we'll probably get more pollution from him than we would on them.
That's all the questions I have at this time.
Harry?
The only question I have is on the right in, right out, and it's on the pavers. And are they gonna be pavers, or are we gonna have painted brick?
Paul helped me out here with that, but I think that's out of my hands. I believe that's going to be an ODOT spec.
ODOT has allowed for stamped concrete to go into those right-in, right-out islands. The most recent was Tide Dry Cleaners.
Okay.
And that, it was a zoning commission requirement for that development. It was a zone change as well, and ODOT has allowed for that consistent look along Beachmont Avenue, but it was stamped concrete.
Yeah, and I think we were particularly focused on that intersection that already had some of that type of look in place. Is there any of that already down in this area?
There is, at Nordike, there were some improvements at Nordike, and then the next intersection up would be 8 Mile, that we did some streetscaping improvements.
And then the other thing too is on the right in, right out, is that gonna be wheelchair, handicap accessible? To
The intention is yes.
Right in, right out, usually you have an island. So are we gonna make it so you can get through that island in a wheelchair, or are we gonna?
The intention, yes. There'll be a ramp, and then the sidewalk through the island of the right in, right out will be at pavement elevation. I believe, Paul, we're working with you to obtain that permit, correct?
For the sidewalk.
Correct.
And then the permit for the right, for the sidewalk, and then the island would be separate.
I'll bring that up with Tom and Chris at ODOT, that you guys would like. What is your preference on that? Is it stamped concrete, or is it?
We found that stamped concrete, you can match the color elsewhere in Beachmont, and it was more durable than the pavers. They would not accept the pavers in the islands, but they would stamp concrete, yes.
Is that something that you're? No, that's fine. Okay. Yeah.
It gets
We can do
almost
that.
the exact same look as a
Okay.
paver.
If you guys can just give us a photo or something that you guys would like us to match, we'll make sure that happens.
No, we should have that, shouldn't we?
Anything else, sir?
No, sir.
Gentlemen, a little bit about employment in this building, about how many during a regular shift?
We have usually 10 to 12 employees in a store, ranging from our general managers, or manager level employees, which are 3 or 4, a general manager, service manager, and then 1 or 2 sales associates, and then the rest are techs of different levels, so service techs, tire techs, mechanics.
Okay.
And I can give you general salary information if you're interested in that. Yeah.
Just was interested in count. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
That's all I have. Any other questions before we, thank you.
Can I make one clarification?
Go ahead, yeah.
Sorry, mine just went blank. Yeah, on the easement, sorry. We received a amended REA, or a REA amendment, and that's what we were going off of, which did not grant a parking easement. So that might be an issue between us and Libby in terms of getting that REA.
It was a condition
Yeah, right.
for the modification to subdivide that parcel.
Right, and so we can go back, sorry, we can go back to Libby with that and
Right.
ask, okay. Okay.
In the land division itself, I don't know if it's actually gone through. It hadn't come through in Cages yet. I don't know if
We received our responses to our title objection letter. It said it had gone through.
it had,
Yeah.
okay.
And that said, to Tim's point, for security purposes, for how our operations work, we still do request the additional spaces. But the reason that there's some miscommunication there, I think, is because of that REA amendment we have. with
Right,
Libby.
and it should, it was a condition, it was a zoning requirement for that land division that be extended to this parcel.
Sure. Thank you.
Chairman, can I ask one more question?
Yes, sir.
I guess, could you reduce the number of parking spaces for your employees and have them park on the adjacent with this agreement in place?
I think, what do we usually account for employees, 5 spaces?
Usually 41, actually 40 to 45 spaces, including, there's usually 78 to even 10 parking spaces utilized by employees. And that usually takes up usually the north-west corners where the employees would normally park, furthest away from the showroom.
So, where you can't see from the showroom, right?
I was just wondering that might bring you closer to compliance with zoning, which potentially could reduce your additional landscaping requirements.
I
and
honestly
buffer.
can't comment on that.
Okay.
I don't even know what they're going to do with the dumpster pads when they take over that. Every conversation I've had with Libby is that that's theirs and
That's
ours is
it.
ours, and we're going to be our own lot.
Okay.
In regards to the signage, I had a conversation with Libby. That's their sign. They don't intend to allow us on it. He said they have tenants that would rather be on it than us. Once again, we're our own lot, and we're no longer a part of their shopping center.
So,
Any more questions?
yeah, I'm just a little confused. So, if you buy this property, they consider you no longer part of that?
I think, I don't want to speak for Libby, but I think essentially their intention in splitting that parcel, despite those 2 conditions, was to split off an outlot of this development so that would be entirely separate. Libby, through 3 entities, owns the entire shopping center other than this parcel that they would be selling to us.
What about Chick-fil-A?
So they still own the
Chick-fil-A?
Sutton?
And Sutton and
separate parcel?
Chick-fil-A?
Tillman Sutton, I don't know about ownership. However, it really doesn't matter. It's all, the zoning for the property is a planned district. It's EE. So regardless of the ownership, whoever is the owner is still obliged by the development plan for the entire development. So whether in Libby's eyes you're part of the shopping center or not, in zoning you are. You're part of that planned district and have to abide by the conditions placed by the zoning commission on that property.
For things such as signage and...
Signage, parking agreements, reciprocal agreements. There needs to be that miscommunication straightened out between Libby and the prospective buyers. And he did submit a letter authorizing them to apply because he is still the owner of this property, and as far as I know, it hasn't transferred yet.
Correct.
So I don't think we need to get into ownership because those conditions still apply.
Okay.
And it needs to happen one way or another, whether it's you or someone else buying it or Libby maintaining it. and you're leasing from them, those conditions still apply.
Anything else, Harry? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
This time, we'll go ahead and maybe go across the commission and ask for any thoughts, comments before we get a motion. Jay, we'll go ahead and start with you again.
I don't have anything.
Okay. Christine?
No comments.
Good. Jonathan?
No comments.
Okay. Harry?
Yes. I'm just confused.
Okay.
And Paul, and I'm going to tell you, I'm confused because I grew up in a retail, with my father and grandfather in a retail business. And they did a lot of work for one of your competitors. And how in the world do you advertise a place without a sign? And you say, and we say, and I understand, and I read the zoning rules, and I've gone through the book, all 6 books that I've gotten over the years, all the way back to DAC when we first started many hundred years ago. But, it just seems to me that somewhere along the line, even if we don't do a million-foot-high sign, whatever they're asking for, we can't do a pedestal-type sign or a monument sign, like we've done, like Welcome to Henderson-type sign, or what they've done at Mercy Hospital. But for, maybe we need to take another look at some of these things as some of these entities start going away where one person or one corporation is starting to sell. And then they sit there and they tell an applicant, sorry, you have to abide by this, but it's such a great abide by, you're not going to get a sign. And here the owner says, I could care less because we're selling it to you. In my mind, maybe this is not the time to bring that up, but maybe it's time when we sit down and, like that once-a-year deal that we try to go through every year, is to sit there and talk this through.
And Paul, is the concern that Harry's expressing a matter for a zone change rather than a major modification? Or is his comment that should we authorize a small monument sign permissible with a major modification?
I think both.
Okay.
If you're concerned with our signage resolution, because this request conflicts in 3 ways with the current zoning in place.
Yeah.
In addition to conflicting with the resolution for this planned district. There's nothing that it conforms to. So that's one thing. This shopping center has 3 signs. All 3 are non-conforming to today's standards. One is the main shopping center sign, one is for West Banco, and then one is for Staples. So the shopping center as a whole has more signage than what any other shopping center out there could have today. So our recommendation in our staff report was based off of the plans that we have in place, the Beachmont Vision Plan, and the modifications for zoning since 1987, and all of them lead in a different direction.
All right,
So-
thank you. Harry, anything else?
No, that's fine. No,
Okay. My remarks, Commissioners, really focuses on the consideration of the vision plan. I asked the question about parking because if we have a shared parking arrangement and employees who come in early in the morning, perhaps leave not during peak hour, who knows, could go across into the shared parking area, do we really need those spaces out front? Do the spaces out front give us enough room for landscaping? Do they give us enough room for other types of things that we're trying to do in this area, including improving perhaps the facade of this building? I don't think parking is impacting that. But I guess my concerns are that, this is one of a handful of properties in this section of the vision plan. I think we ought to take the staff's recommendations pretty seriously. I'm glad to see the 24-foot drive lane taken care of. I think, I wrote down during the comments of staff about the signs, we already have a proposal that's too tall, maybe an existing sign that's perhaps too tall, signs that are too close, and other action that's already shown that we have enough signage in this area, and perhaps now is the time for the shopping center owner to come to grips with managing these parcels. So on the matter of, I think those are my major concerns, is that really the vision, the visual from Beachmont Avenue. Right now, I'm not real crazy about having a bunch of parking spaces there and being deficient in the amount of setback, which is one of the recommendations of the staff, that we cure that problem. Is that right?
Yes. The two options of having over the optimum are either the zoning commission grants a variance for having over, or double the setback, 20-foot setback of the parking area, not the building itself, and then increasing the amount of landscaping.
Okay. So those are my thoughts. With that, entertain a motion. We have a staff recommendation. So what's the pleasure of the board?
Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the major modification with the staff conditions and the additional conditions that the dumpster surround contain the same exterior finish materials as the main building. The right-in, right-out island have stamped concrete colored to match other Anderson Township features. And I believe that would take care of, with staffs, the parking and/or landscaping setback or the reduction of the parking count. Is that correct, Paul?
Yes, if no variance is granted, one of those would need to take place, either reduction and get them into the optimum number, or meet their requirements to offset the optimum.
And with this motion, I also, that we do not approve the proposed sign because it does not meet any of the zoning criteria.
Okay.
I second that motion.
So we have a motion and a second. Just clarification on item 3, the south elevation. Would we then leave that to staff's discretion to work out with the owner?
I think so.
Okay, Paul?
Well, so the intent of that condition, and again, was not that the building be flip-flopped in all the bays.
Correct.
It's to get some sort of front on the Beachmont Avenue side.
Okay.
That was the intent.
And
Whether
we'll leave
extending the windows, doing something to soften, I believe the 3 windows were added in zoning commission. Staff didn't feel that this was a front appearance. If zoning commission, I'd like your opinion, if you thought the 3 windows changed this enough to make it look like a front, but.
I think the 3 windows would be close, but they need to be larger in area from what that 3-dimensional view looks like.
Yeah, Paul, I think the motion leaves it to your discretion.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Any other clarifications? Staff good? Okay. We have a motion and a second. We'll go ahead and do roll call.
Mr. Metcalf?
No.
Mr. Goffard?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Van Tren?
Yes.
And I'm gonna clarify my no, and it's because of the signage.
Okay.
I agree with everything else in the thing except for the signage.
That's fine. Do we have anything else to go before the commission tonight?
We do not, and I don't have anything yet for next month, unless something comes up. There are several things out there, but no one, I don't think we have anything next month. So
Okay.
I'll let you know after the deadline passes, just so you can plan
What's that
accordingly.
deadline?
So
looking for August?
It would be
Or
June the
not
3rd.
July.
June the 3rd would be the deadline for the meeting, which is on the 24th.
All right, thank you. Motion to adjourn?
You got it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Damn, you run a good meeting.